Hello and welcome to my channel. Today's topic is structured logging in Go programming language. Let's get started. So, what is the problem? The problem is today in Golang, before structured logging was introduced in the standard library, we had third party libraries like Zerolog, LogRS, and Zap. Zap is from Uber, and they provided the structured level logging for Golang. The problem is that, as you can see on the bottom, I have mentioned three, that all of the output, the log output is different for Zerolog, Logera, Zap, and there is a consistency problem. Also, these logs are very voluminous, so filtering becomes very difficult. And the third is that if we let this grow, the problem is only going to increase. Someone else will come with another popular structured logging, and repos will start using it. That way, there will be a sprawl of logging in Golang. To address these problems, in Go 1.21, the team came out with a package called Slog, which is structured logging. Slog provides a high performance structured and level logging to the Go standard library. It's a very good addition, and structured logs use key value pairs so that they can be parsed, filtered, searched, and analyzed quickly and reliably. So, what is the design of this log? The design is you have a front end and a back end in structured logging. The front end is uh, demonstrated by slog.logger that implements the front end. The front end is that collects all the attributes, the message, and logger creates a slog.record from all the input it gets, and that record is passed to the slog.handler, and then the log output is produced. So the handler is a very important piece. It decides the formatting and the destination of the log. A slog comes with two built-in handlers. One is text, another one is JSON, and you can choose either one of them. And let's look at the legacy. So what is the difference between the legacy log versus the new structured logging? As you can see in the top one, I'm using log.println and slog.info, and at the bottom you can see the output from these commands. There is no difference in the output except slog adds the level info to the log message. So just by doing slog.info, you get level logging. So similar to slog.info, there are other top level functions like slog.debug, slog.warn, slog.error, and you can see at the bottom, you can see the output of this. Now, by default, why you don't see slog.debug is that because a level logging is just an integer in Golang, and it's like -4, 0, 4, and 8. The default value is the zero value of integer, that is info, and by default anything info or above is outputted in the logs. That's why you don't see debug. Now, how do you create a new logger? As shown on the screen, you can create by using new JSON handler or new text handler, and state that I want to see the logs in this io.writer. Here in this case, I'm using standard out, and the second parameter is the handler options, which I'm passing nil for now. So that way you can create a new handler. Let's look at how you can create a child logger. So let's say you create a logger using slog.new. You can easily create a child logger with dot with method, and that will give you a new logger with certain attributes you want, and that logger is only available in that context. So for here example, in library I pass the child logger, and then I do a library.hello lib.demo, and then I switch back to the main logger and I save from main. At the bottom you can see the output of these logs. The top two are from the library, hence you can see the source key being added to the log, and as soon as I go to the main logger, the parent logger, that key is no longer valid or does not exist in that logger, and only from main is outputted. Now let's say if a key is absent in the logs, what happens? If a key is absent as shown here, if you do a slog.info and the first parameter is the message, the second is the key and value, and then I mentioned the key but I forgot the value, it will give me that key as hash exclamation bad key. That means that key is missing a value, so that's why that's a bad key. You can see in the output at the bottom, it is shown that it's exclamation bad key. So how now let's go to the handler options. I touched upon this, but you can, the options available are add source, level, and replace attribute. If you add source by default is false, but if you set it true, in the output at the bottom you can see that it adds things like a function, where it happened, the file that it happened in. I removed the entire path, but it will give the entire path to the file. I removed the file path, I just left the file name and the line number that is added by adding the source. Is very useful when you're debugging logs. The second option is level. Here you can set any level for the handler, and the third one is replace attribute. This is very important if you would like to perform some filtration before the log going to its destination, and you can do this. I've shown an example here with the array variable, that how this filtering can be done, and that way you can set the handler options. So let's look at the slog.log valuer interface now. For example, here I've shown what the slog.log valuer looks like, that interface looks like, but for a moment let's forget about it and focus on the bottom slide. Let's say you're not using log valuer, you're just logging that object. At the very bottom it shows the output of this object, and by default it will print the object as is, including the variable. So for example, here the variable is id in caps and name with N capital, password with P capital, and the actual password. Now let's say you want to override this behavior. You can do by implementing the slog.log valuer interface on the user object. The way you do that is, as shown in the top slide, you can implement a function called log value and return how you would the way you would make the logs look like. So for example, here I'm changing the id in caps to all small case, name is in all small case, password is in all small case, and the password is masked. And at the very bottom you can see the output of overriding using the slog.log valuer interface. That way you can override the default behavior. Now let's see if you want to switch the handles. So here you can very easily, depending on your configuration, here I've shown using the environment variable. Let's say I set an environment app underscore environment variable to production. Then if it is set to production, I would like to see my logs in JSON format. If I'm using locally, it's not in production, I would like to see, it will make it little easier and readable if I use a text handler. So this way you can switch the handlers. If it goes to production, you can use a different handler. If you are doing the local development, then you can use a different handler. Now, type safety is, so far we have looked at how you can log attributes using the key value. But let's say you want type safety and efficiency is your concern, then you can use something called slog.attr type, that is just the key value, and that provides type safety. It has integer, string, all the types, and you can use those types slog.int, slog.string, like I've shown in the slide in the screenshot, and that way you can get an efficiency and type safety at the same time. This usually you're okay with without these slog.int or slog.string. You can directly use them if your logging parameters or attributes are 5 or less than 5. If it goes above 5, then it's better to use this slog dot integer, slog dot string, slog dot bool, etc., to get that efficiency and type safety. Now let's say you want to group certain variables, so you can use slog.group, and you can mention the group name like I've done in the top screenshot. You can see that the group name is user, and I'm logging a couple of attributes within that group, and at the very bottom you can see the output. It says the group name and then displays the output as a JSON object, name and ID, and that way you can group multiple attributes together. Very neat feature. Now let's say you want to let's say you want to change the level of logging dynamically. For that, slog has provided something called slog dot level var type, which is nothing but an integer. The default level debug, level info, level 1, level error are nothing but integers -4, 0, 4, and 8. The default being level info. If you would like to introduce other levels, you can do so. Between -4 and 0, you can introduce new levels, or 0, 4 you can introduce, or 4, 8. That means 5, 6, 7. That way you can introduce a new level. For example, I've shown at the bottom slide how you can dynamically set the levels at runtime. So for example, my environment variable, I can have log level, and I can set to I would like to debug in the development box, but on the production I would like to turn the debug off. So I can set the level with dot set method on the new slog.level var type, and set my level accordingly. So this way you can switch your switch the levels dynamically. Now let's say you want to adapt you have existing code and you are making use of log, which was prior to slog. There was only log in the standard library. Let's say you're using that. The good news is, just by setting slog.set default to the slog, you can get the benefit of level logging uh, by doing nothing, just by setting default, and it will affect the default logger within the log package. So just by setting slog.set default, as you can see on the right hand side screenshot, I am using library.hello without logger. That means I'm not passing any logger, I'm just doing log.println, and you can get the benefit of level logging immediately. Let's say you are accepting a log, or at the type level you are setting a parameter, or that can be set to a log, or you are accepting log as a parameter in a method. You can also pass using slog.new log logger. That's a method where slog converts the existing logger to the standard log logger that was available before. And at the bottom you can see I'm passing a new log and it will print out that value. Now, keep in mind that on the handler, if you set the level and you set the level at the level of new logger, then the level of the handler overrides what you set in the dot new logger. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you are interested in other videos like this, do watch the ones shown on the screen. Thank you very much.